So there are a lot of good reasons for why you would want to move out of the city and into a rural environment. You generally have more privacy, more freedom in the sense of less restrictions on what you can do, and it's considered to be safer. However, that consideration of safety is sometimes over-exaggerated to the point of people becoming complacent with their own personal security. And that's a big issue that a lot of people need to understand, especially if you're from an urban environment and recently relocated to a rural area. You might see this new small town as being shiny, clean, and free of crime, but there is crime happening and you still have to be on guard regardless of your new location. And for those of you who have been in rural environments for the entirety of your life, it's easy to assume nothing's going to happen where you live because in the past that's been the case. But things have changed rapidly over the last few years, and this country as a whole has become more dangerous. So I'm going to share a couple of stories with you that have literally just happened here in my small community over the time that I've been sick. I've been sick for like 6 days now. My name's Magic Prepper. Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel. Thanks to them, I could take some days off and still get you good information once I was able to be healthy enough to record another video. So big thanks to Midway USA. Of course, if you need preparedness equipment or gear or anything like that, make sure you check them out. But in general, I was only gone for like 6 days. And in that time, 2 different criminal stories came out that I wanted to share with you to give you a reminder as to the fact that you can't just be complacent about your own security because of where you live. Maybe 5, 10, 20 years ago, that would have been the case, right? Leaving your doors unlocked, leaving the keys in your car and all these things. But that's just not the world we're in right now. With all of the unmitigated migration across the border in the south and the north, and with all the crime being unchecked, people being let out with no bail and all types of other things happening right now in this country, crime has risen everywhere, not just in the cities. And you have to be on guard. It doesn't matter where you live. You have to be prepared to respond, especially in rural environments, because you're the first responder. The police might not be there for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. Who knows how long it will be, depending on how many people are on duty, right? So we'll start off with the first story, which is from my local police department, okay? And this is something you expect to hear about in a city, not necessarily a small town of like 2,000 people, right? But here we are. So this is from the Tioga Police Department. They posted this on their Facebook page, but just listen to this to give you an idea of how things are changing in any landscape right now, okay? Today, the Tioga Police Department was made aware of an ongoing situation that has been occurring at the Timber Cove apartments. Female tenants are reporting to management that unknown males have been following them around the property to include the hallways inside of the buildings. In one instance, these males were observed wearing masks and were attempting to gain access to units within the building. The Tioga Police Department will increase patrols of Timber Cove apartments to include the common areas within the buildings. In the meanwhile, if anyone sees something suspicious or out of place, call 911 right away. Delayed calls make trying to get to the bottom of these matters extremely difficult. Make sure that you take proper precautions and make yourself a hard target. You can do this by simply being aware of your surroundings, locking the doors to your home/apartment, locking your vehicles when unattended, and walking in groups at night should you need to take the trash out. Now, of course, in typical fashion, they leave out the idea of just arming yourself as an option, which that's my suggestion. But regardless, this is happening here, and this is from 6 days ago. Like I said, since I've been sick, I've been gone for a minute. It's been a rough one. These things are happening in my area, in my town. So you guys, no matter where you are, should at least assume that these things can happen where you are too, or are happening already. It's not just about relocating. Sometimes it's also about the fact that these smaller towns are easier for these criminals to target if they can access them because of the fact that there's less of a police force and less of a response when it comes to the amount of time required for said response. So, to the next story, right, which is, I guess, what I'm calling these. These are just anecdotal things, okay? But regardless, this is from a town nearby called Powers Lake. And this is posted by somebody in a local community page, right? And your kids aren't just safe because you're in a rural environment, right? You got to still maintain a level of security around your kids. Child trafficking is through the roof in this country. And they're targeting kids anywhere and everywhere they can. And often these crimes are crimes of opportunity. And that's what was reported here. So, to all parents in Powers Lake, and I did censor the names out on these posts because it's not my business to post them all over the internet, but I thought this was at least worth sharing. To all parents in Powers Lake, was on his way home from the park on his bike, and a man in a black car stopped and said to, "Get in, your mom wants me to pick you up." He said no, and they followed him to my mom's house. Once they saw grandma outside waiting for him, they drove away. I've called the cops. That's a kidnapping attempt in a much smaller town than even mine. Nearby is where my veterinarian is, but it's still much smaller. So this is just a reminder, not only for you, but for me too, that just because we live somewhere that is inherently safer and does allow for more freedom and is away from the mess and the riffraff of the cities, doesn't mean you can let your guard down. It doesn't mean you can't heighten your security, especially in times like these. The country has been infiltrated by all kinds of people, millions of people. They're not just in the southern border states. They're not just in New York City and San Francisco. They're literally everywhere. They're everywhere. So you have to act accordingly. Make sure you talk to your children. Make sure you have a plan of how to keep everybody safe. Make sure you lock your doors. I know that sounds stupid to some people. I understand that. But it's an easy thing to do, and it might deter somebody enough to stop something bad from happening. So you got to change your mindset a little bit. This is the world we're in right now. This is the America we're currently living in 2024, right? Not my choice, not how I would have liked things to go, but here we are. Hopefully there's some changes here in the future, but you can't count on that. The only thing you can count on is what you're capable of doing and what you're willing to do in order to protect the people around you. There's a saying I heard from a friend of mine, I don't know, I can't talk or think very well right now, still a little sick. And the saying is that if you live in the country, you're being stolen from, you just don't know it yet. And I think that's in reference to most likely materials, right? Building materials and things of that nature that are on your property, but not necessarily within sight of your home or whatever it may be. But that is what's being told to me by people who work law enforcement in rural environments. And if that's the case, that means people are accessing your property. And you see it all the time when it comes to hunters and when it comes to utility workers and when it comes to ranchers who are looking for their cattle or any other excuse you can think of for why you might be on someone's property, even if it's not why you're on someone's property. That is what's happening. So, people say all the time, I get this on this channel a lot, well, you're in nowhere, North Dakota. Why are you worried about stuff happening? Because stuff is happening. And because stuff will happen everywhere. Don't insulate yourself or be complacent just because you think where you are is immune to it. It's not anymore. Maybe it was at one point in time, but not anymore. So, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. If you like this channel and you want to help a sick guy out, because I'm apparently doing the best I can right now, hit the like button, subscribe, maybe share the video. I'm just doing the best I can to give you guys good information. I know a lot of people are saying, hey, right now what we need is intel and we need concepts and we need thought exercises because everything else has been pretty well covered in the sense of, food and power and stuff like that. And I get that. And I'm trying my best to deliver on that where I can. And hopefully this gives you something to consider because like I said, since I've been sick, this has happened in the last 6 days. What else has happened over the last month, 6 months, a year? What will happen, right? You got to think about it.